Hello colleagues, welcome to Conversion of Units Part 2. My name is Opak Mark. I remind you, please don't forget to subscribe and also don't forget to like and share. You can share this video with your friends, so that God blesses you. It's good to share. Let us go straight forward to this part of the conversion, that is conversion of square units. Conversion of square units. Now, when you talk of square units, this includes millimeters squared, centimeters squared, meters squared, kilometers squared, decimeters squared, decameters squared, etc. Now, let's, for example, see, we know that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So it implies that 1 meter squared is equivalent to 100 times 100 centimeters squared, which gives you 10,000 centimeters squared. We also know that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters, and so it implies that 1 centimeter squared is equal to 10 times 10, which gives you 100 millimeters squared. And we also know that 1 meter squared is equivalent to 1,000. 1 meter squared is equal to 1 meter is equal to 1,000 millimeters, and so 1 meter squared is equivalent to 1,000 times 1,000 meters squared, which gives you 1 million meters, millimeters squared. 1 million millimeters squared. Now also, we know that 1 millimeter is equal to 1 over 100 centimeter. That is, if you are converting smaller units to bigger units, 1 millimeter, only 1 millimeter is equivalent to 1 over 10 centimeters. So 1 times 1 millimeter squared will be 1 over 10 times 1 over 10, which gives you 0.01 centimeters squared. And then also 1 centimeter squared is going to be 1 over 100 millimeters times 1 over 100 meters, which gives you 0.0001 meter squared. In a similar way, also if you have 1 millimeter squared, is going to be 1 millimeter times 1 millimeter, which is the same as 1 over 1,000 meters times 1 over 1,000 meters, which will give you 0.000001 meter squared. Now, this you are going to understand as we do the example. Let's see the examples for you to get even this better. But the point here is that we can always convert linear units. We can always convert square units if we know linear units. If you have the equivalence of the linear units, then getting the equivalence of the square units becomes easy. For example, I've already shown you that if I have 1 meter is equivalent to 100 centimeters. So it implies that 1 meter times 1 meter is going to be 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters, which will give you 10,000 centimeters squared. So that's how you can get that. So 1 meter squared is equivalent to 10,000 centimeters squared. Now let's look at some examples. Now let's have this example here. Convert the following units. A, 50 meters squared to centimeters squared. B, 20 kilometers squared to meters squared. C, 30 centimeters squared to millimeters squared. D, 250 meters squared to kilometers squared. E, 500 millimeters squared to centimeters squared. And lastly, 15,000 centimeters squared to kilometers squared. Let's see how to do this. By the time we finish this example, we will be ready to convert any square unit. Now let's begin by looking at this part A, that is 50 meters squared to centimeters squared. Now here I say that first of all we need to know the equivalence of the linear units. Then that will give us the equivalence of the square units. For example, 1 meter is equivalent to 100 centimeter. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. And so 1 meter times 1 meter gives you 1 meter squared. So 1 meter times 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters, which will give you 10,000 centimeters squared. So when you multiply this times that, it will give you 1 meter squared. 100 centimeters times 100 centimeters will give you 10,000 centimeters squared. And so 1 meter squared is equal to 10,000 centimeters squared. Now, we have 50 meters squared, 50 centimeters squared. Sorry, 50 meters squared. If 1 meter squared is equal to 10,000 centimeters squared, what about 50 meters? If 1 is equivalent to 10,000, what about 50? So it means that we shall multiply by 50. So we shall have, so 50 meters squared is going to be 50 times 10,000 centimeters squared, which will give us 500,000 centimeters squared. That is part A. Let's look at part B. Part B, we have 20 kilometers squared is to meters squared. First of all, these are big units to small units. So we shall say that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. That one's known. What about if I multiply 1 kilometer times 1 kilometer? 1 kilometer times 1 kilometer means it's going to be 1,000 meters times 1,000 meters. And then we shall get 1 kilometer squared. In simple terms, we are trying to square this and square this. When you square 1 kilometer and also square, when you square 1 kilometers, you get 1 kilometer times 1 kilometer. And if you square 1,000 meters, you get 1,000 meters times 1,000 meters. That is squaring. So we shall have 1 kilometer squared is going to be 1 million meters squared. Now we have the equivalence now of 1 kilometer squared to meters squared. So 1 kilometer squared is equal to 1 million meters squared. What about the 20 kilometers squared? So the 20 kilometers squared, we shall multiply 20 times 1 million meters squared, which will give us 20 million meters squared. So 20 kilometers squared is equal to 20 kilometers squared is equal to 20 million meters squared. That is how we do that. Let's look at part C. We have 30 centimeters squared to millimeters squared. So we are still converting a big unit to a small unit. So we know that 1 centimeter is equivalent to 10 millimeters. 1 centimeter is equivalent to 10 millimeters. What about if we square both sides? That means that we shall have 1 centimeter times 1 centimeter is equivalent to 10 millimeters times 10 millimeters. So that will give us 1 centimeter squared, if you multiply this, is equivalent to 100 millimeters squared. So it simply implies that 1 centimeter squared is equivalent to 100 millimeters squared. But here we have 30 centimeters squared. So we shall have 30 times 100, which will give us 3,000 millimeters squared. So 30 centimeters squared is equivalent to 3,000 millimeters squared. Let's look at it. Part D. We have 250 meters squared, 2 kilometers squared. Now here we are converting a smaller unit to a bigger unit. Smaller unit to a bigger unit. This one always quite teases. Quite teases, but you can do it because it is very easy to do it. Let's see how to do that when you're converting a smaller unit to a bigger unit. First of all, we need to know the equivalence in linear of the equivalence of the linear units. Now we know that 1 kilometer is equivalent to 1,000 meters. That's where we begin from. We know that 1 kilometer is equivalent to 1,000 meters. Now what about 1 meter? What about 1 meter? First of all, we know that 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer. 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer. What about 1 meter? 1 meter is going to be 1 divided by 1,000 kilometers. And that will give you 1 over 1,000 kilometers. 1 meter is equal to 1 over 1,000 kilometers. So please don't confuse that. 1 kilometer is equivalent to 1,000 meters because kilometer is a bigger unit compared to meters. but 1 meter is equivalent to 1 over 1,000 kilometers. So you need to note that and know how that comes about. Now, if we square both sides, we shall have 1 meter squared is equivalent to 1 over 1,000 kilometers times 1 over 1,000 kilometers, which will give you 1 over 1 million kilometers squared. So we shall square both sides, and we shall have that. That is 1 meter times 1 meter is also going to be 1 over 1,000 kilometer times 1 over 1,000 kilometer. That means that 1 meter is going to be 1 over 1 million kilometers squared. Yeah, so after reaching this, you are just at the point. Now, but we have 250 meters squared. So 250 meters squared is going to be 250 meters squared is going to be 250 times 1 over 1 million kilometers squared. So just multiply, because we know 1 meter squared is equivalent to 1 over 1 million kilometers squared. What about the 250? We simply multiply by the value for 1 meter squared, and that will give us 250 times 1 over 1 million kilometers squared, and that will be 250 divided by 1 million kilometers squared, and that will be 0.00025 kilometers squared. Let's look at part E. Part E. Now, 500 millimeters squared to centimeters squared. So we are converting smaller unit to a bigger unit. Now, first of all, you need to know the equivalence in linear terms. We know that 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. I can also say 10 millimeters is equivalent to 1 centimeter. 10 millimeters is equal to 1 centimeter. I've just simply interchanged this. Now, what about 1 millimeter? 1 millimeter is going to be 1 over 10 centimeters. Now, if I square both sides, square this side and square this side, it means I'll have 1 squaring is multiplying a number by itself. Now, for example, here is I'll be multiplying 1 millimeter times 1 millimeter, and this side I'll have 1 over 10 centimeters times 1 over 10 centimeters, and we shall have this. That means that we shall have 1 millimeter squared is equivalent to 1 over 100 centimeters squared, and that will be 1 millimeter squared is equivalent to 1 over 100 centimeters squared. Now, when you reach this point, you are just on point. So, because we know that if I know the equivalence of 1 millimeter squared, then I can get for 500 millimeters squared. So if I want 500 millimeters squared, it's going to be 500 times 1 over 100 centimeters squared. So when we multiply that, we shall have 500 over 100 centimeters squared. So 500 millimeters squared is going to be equal to 5 centimeters squared. Yeah, that is it. Now, lastly, let's look at part F. So we have 15,000 centimeters squared to kilometers squared. Smaller unit to a bigger unit. That is centimeters squared, kilometers squared. Now, first of all, we need to know what is 1 kilometer. 1 kilometer is equivalent to 100,000 centimeters. 1 kilometer is equal to 100,000. This is an error. Sorry for that. It's supposed to be 1 kilometer is equivalent to 100,000 centimeters. That is an error, but I need to correct that. I need to correct that. I've interchanged this, but we shall just do some editing here. Okay, this is supposed to be, this is off. Sorry for that. This is supposed to be 1 kilometer. is equal to 1000 centimeters. Sorry for that. Ooh, that was a typing error, big mistake. This is supposed to be 100,000 centimeters. 100,000 centimeters is equivalent to 1 kilometers, because we know centimeter is a smaller unit compared to a kilometer. So we need to know that, and so when you make that error, you should always remember that a kilometer is bigger than a centimeter. So it means that we can continue. Hope everything else is okay. So we have 100,000 centimeters is equivalent to 1 kilometers. What about 1 centimeter? So 1 centimeter, here it is okay. So 1 centimeter is going to be 1 over 100,000 kilometers. 1 centimeter is equal to 1 over 100,000 kilometers. Now we have that equivalence in linear units. Now if you want to get a square units, we shall square both sides. Square both sides. So it means that 1 centimeter times 1 centimeter is going to be equivalent to 1 over 100,000 kilometer times 1 over 100,000 kilometer. And that means that 1 centimeter squared is going to be 1 over, that is what? Billion? 1 over 10 billion kilometers squared, yeah. So 1 centimeter squared is going to be 1 over 10 billion, 1 over 10 billion kilometers squared. So I have the equivalence of centimeters squared to kilometers squared. Now what about the 15,000 centimeters? So 15,000 centimeters, I'll simply multiply by this. If I know the equivalence, if 1 centimeter squared is equivalent to 1 over 10 billion kilometers squared, that means that the 15,000 centimeters squared is going to be 15,000 times 1 over 10 billion kilometers squared, and that will be 15,000 divided by 10 billion kilometers squared. Oh, errors. It's kilometers squared. And if you divide that, we shall have 0.0000015 kilometers squared. So that's how we convert these square units. That's the same thing you do to any square units that I've told you to convert. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention. Please, I remind you, if you have not subscribed, subscribe, like, and share. If you have a question, contact me on this email address, that is mark.opak@yahoo.com. God bless you.